these formation fragments or formation cuttings that have been drilled so far up to the surface, where it can be examined to actually help the well site geologists also to carry out its information as regards the formation. Now, another thing is here now, these rock fragments are actually cut by a shale shaker and is collected at regular interval. At regular interval, these cuttings are being brought up and is collected from the shale shaker. And most times, we also examine our formation to know the kind of fluid found in our formation, whereby we might have some cutting stain, where we have some hydrocarbon or any of these fluids actually staining these rock cuttings coming up to the surface. And most times we can actually detect gas in our gas detector, or it can be analyzed using a gas. You should also know the information that is gotten from our mud log. Now, our mud log consists of the following information recorded by depth. Now, you should know that from our mud log, we can be able to get our weight on bits, our drill strength, our drilling rate of penetration. Now, we can be able to get the most important thing, that as a geologist or as a reservoir engineer, we should be able to know the lithology and texture of our cutting. We should be able to know if this is a sand formation, a sandstone formation, or a shale formation. And also, we should be able to know the percentage of gas in air. That we should be able to know the composition of our gas. Now, lastly, we should be able to get at what depth or which formation is actually coming with a hydrocarbon staining, that which depth actually produces a cutting that has a hydrocarbon staining. Now we can tell from that depth that depth can be a hydrocarbon bearing zone, and we can actually match that from our seismic or from other wells drilled, other nearby wells drilled. Now, application of our mud logging, there are so many applications of our mud logging. It's used in monitoring our bit performance. It's used to determine our lithology, and so it's used to know where we can carry out our casing depth. It gives us our total depth. It gives us the depth to which we can core. No, you don't go and core it. Going to core a water zone, most times might not be productive. Going to core a water zone might not be productive. So you should try to know which zone to core when carrying out coring. Like one of the zones to core, you can go about coring your hydrocarbon zone. How do you know that that zone is the hydrocarbon zone? When you have cutting stain with hydrocarbon coming out from that particular depth, you know, okay, I'm cutting a little bit to the hydrocarbon zone. So I can core that zone in order for me to get some vital information, such as the porosity, such as the permeability, such as the water saturation, such as the hydrocarbon saturation, and other petrophysical properties you can get from those zones. Now, if you actually go about a proper mud logging, it can help you go about all these information as regarded to mud logging. Now we have core. It can also be called coring. We have types of coring and we have its uses. Now, a better understanding of what a core is and what the uses of a core, it will help us in carrying out our information. Please, at this point, I would like to get your comments from the chat box. Please, if I can be heard clearly, if my voice is done, you can also let me know. Now, very poor sound quality and black box on presentation. Black box on presentation. Okay, I think I will rectify that. Black box on presentation. Please, I would also like to get your other comment. Please help me. Your comment is important to me. Let me get your comment so that it can help me in conveying the good message. Okay, I'm going to reshare. I'm going to reshare my screen. Please, host, can you enable me to share my screen again? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Please, I would like more comments from the chat box. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to continue with this. I think my Petre software now is up. Okay, I think my Petre software now is up. I would like to just share. Please, host, enable me to share my screen. I have different screens to share. Okay, this is my screen. This is one of the software. This is Spectral software by SkolarGate. It's one of the software we use for our reservoir characterization or our formation evaluation. Now, these are well logs. These are our well data contained in our well logs. These are lithology. When we get to well logs, I'm going to come into this aspect to actually show some vital information as regards to formation evaluation. Now, we also have a 3D window where we can actually display wells. We have our 3D windows where we can display our wells and so. Now this is just it. But notwithstanding, we are going to go through this a little in the course of this training, but it will be in a detailed format. So please, I would like you to just relax yourself and enjoy the class. Thank you. Please, I'm trying to rush up because of the time given to me. I just have barely 40 minutes left to go on with this class. Okay, coming back to our slides. Okay, coming back to our slides, we were to discuss types of cores and uses of cores and how we can go about rock coring. Now, these are samples of our core. We have our core plugs, we have our core slab, we have our resonated core, we have our whole core. This whole core is what was taken from the field. Now, our resonated core is just like our preserved core before they were taken to the lab, where we have our core slab. So this core slab helps in cutting our cores into plug. So that is just as simplified as that. Now, core is a representative sample of our geologic formation. Why drilling? I told you that once you hit a zone of interest to you, or once you've gotten to a depth of interest to you, either displayed from your seismic or as displayed from your cutting stain or from your gas detector. Now it's left for you to carry out an operation called coring. Now coring helps in getting some tools down the formation of the subsurface to get a representative sample of the geologic formation that is of interest to you. Now, if you know you've gotten to any geologic formation that is of interest to you, now it's important that you call that formation so as to get a representative sample, what it actually looks like physically, not actually interpreting from just your well log totally. Now, the process of obtaining a representative sample of rock formation is what is called or is known as coring. Now, core will provide geologic and engineering information. Now, the geologic information that our core is going to provide is going to help us with mainly our lithology. What kind of lithology are we of that is of interest to us? Is it a sandstone lithology? Is a hydrocarbon found in a sandstone lithology, or is it found in a shaly lithology, or in a mixed lithology? Mixed lithology, I mean, is sand shaly lithology. Now, it also gives us some engineering information. Such information as our porosity, our permeability, our saturation, and most of all those things. Now, reservoir characteristics can be inferred from measurement made directly on cores. Now you should know that our core actually gives us our direct measurement, while our well logs actually gives us indirect measurement as regards reservoir characterization or reservoir parametric measurement. Now, information from core samples are better representative. Take note of that. Now, you can't just ascertain totally, or you can mention that you are 100% sure that your interpretation from just your well log analysis is a whole representation of your formation. That cannot be so certain. Now, information from core samples are better representation of our reservoir characterization than information gotten from other methods of evaluation, such as wireline logs and seismic. All these other methods of evaluation is just to create more certainty on the information gotten from well cores. Now, there are different sources and types of cores. We have the different methods of obtaining our cores. We have our percussion sidewall method, we have our rotary sidewall method, and we have our conventional coring. Now, I might not go into details in these different types of coring or source of coring because of our time, because I have some other things to actually hit. But there are advantages and disadvantages of this coring method. I believe that these training slides will be given to all those that will be interested in the certificate of participation. Just hit up the organizer of this training, and the training slides will be given to you once you're interested in the certificate of participation. I believe we have passed that across to you guys. Now we have the mechanical sidewall coring. This from the picture on my right, you can see how the mechanical sidewall coring actually occurs. A wireline rotary coring to drill sample out of the borehole using an electronic driven retractable coring bit. That's how it does. You have your coring tools attached firmly to your formation, and a retractable high-speed drill bit is actually put through the formation using a hydraulic drill motor. Now, you also have a core storage tool. When your core has been taken from your formation, it is actually stored in that core storage tool. This is how we go about our mechanical coring. Now we have different classifications of core. We have representative core, as was seen in the first step from the first diagram when we came to coring subject. Now, representative core are those cores that represent rock species, porosity, permeability adequately. These are the cores, each core with their functions and so. Now we have different applications of core data. What do core data help us? What the core data helps us to do? Now, core data actually helps us in the characterization of our reservoir. It helps us in the estimation of volumes. It helps us in our rock identification, and it also helps us in the environment of deposition. The environment of deposition, the geologists will tell us more as concerns our environment of deposition. If it's in a fluvial environment, if it's in a pastoral environment, and so. So the geologist plays a better role in using our cores to tell us the information of the position. Now, for the petrophysicist which I am, the kind of information we get from our core are just basic rock properties, such as our porosity, such as our permeability, and such as our grain density. We can also get our saturation from our capillary pressure, because we can actually ascertain our capillary pressure from our core. We can also know the effect of stress and production induced due to compaction. Now, most of my studies in pore pressure prediction, I've been able to carry out some studies where I know the actual cause of my abnormal pressure zone, where we have abnormal compaction trend and so, and the rest of it. With our core parameters, with our core analysis, we can actually tell how the stress has been induced due to compaction. Now, we can also find out acoustic properties such from our sonic logs ascertain that. Now, for the geologist, it helps us in facial analysis, it helps us in mineral identification, it helps us in diagenesis and clay typing, the positional information age, and so. These are information gotten for the geologist. For the reservoir engineer, it helps the reservoir engineer to know the relative permeability how capillary pressure curves can be ascertained, critical gas saturation, our pore volume compressibility, and our flooding test. All these are different information. Now, all this information can be gotten from our well logs. Are you seeing how, from our formation course? Are you seeing how formation course is helping us to evaluate our formation with all these kind of information, all this vital information gotten from your formation, or from your formation evaluation? You can be certain that this will actually lead to a better reserve management by the management team. Now, we also look at our Volvo Seismic. Looking at our Volvo Seismic, now we can tell from our Volvo Seismic how our rock formation is being fractured, how our formation fluids, that is our hydrocarbon fluids, are being trapped in our formation. We can also see how we can generate. We can also see how we can generate surfaces as regards the zone of interest to us. All these are important parameters. Now, I would like to disable my slides now so that I can just show you a little bit of Petra software, how we can go about our formation evaluation when it comes to seismic evaluation. So please, organizer, you help me to also share my screen again. I would like to share my Petra screen. Okay, I believe you guys can see my screen. Now, I think I can display it from my 2D window. These are my wells as displayed in my 2D window. These are my wells as displayed in my 2D window. So I'm going to get this all cleared out. Let me try to see if my seismic okay. This was my original seismic. This is the time slice of my seismic. This is the time slice of my seismic. This was how I got this seismic from the company which this work was being done for. Now, with this, I can carry out further evaluation, or we call it seismic attribute. So as for me to see where my seismic is being faulted, like from here, due to my experience, I'm actually seeing a fault at this point. I'm seeing a fault at this point, and I'm also seeing a fault running through this point. Now, for me to know that there are different seismic attributes that actually gives me that. Now, this is actually a trace agency seismic attribute, which helps in my sweetness. It brings out my seismic more so for me to see more good qualities of my seismic. It enhances the quality of my seismic also. Let me check out this. Okay. This is my variance edge attribute. What this helps me to do, with this, I can tell that this is actually a fault, this is actually a fault, this is actually a fault, this is actually a fault. I have so many faults here. If I want to ascertain this more, I'm going to put up my wells. I see that my wells are all found within, my 4 wells are found within this location. And I'm having some little bright spots here. With this bright spot, it can actually tell me that I'm having a hydrocarbon bearing zone here. So with my ability to actually carry out my fault analysis or my fault analysis, I'll be able to get a closure for my reservoir. This is also a part of our formation evaluation using our seismic. This is what our seismic do. I can carry out my fault interpretation via my seismic here. With this, I can see some faults. Now we know different types of, we have a stratigraphic fault, we have a structural fault, we have a combined fault, and so many of them, under some of them that are subdivided to are folded, and so all this kind of interpretation is what interests us in having a formation being evaluated. This is part of formation evaluation using your seismic. Now I'm going to go back to my slide. Okay, I think I will rush through this. Now, the different way to which our seismic is being gotten, with this slide can be shared later. Now, the next thing we'll be looking at is how we can go about our formation evaluation using our well logging. Now, we have different kind of well logging. We have our open hole logging, we have our closed hole logging. But for our formation evaluation, we are more interested in our open hole logging. Now, after a section of a well has been drilled or cased, tools are lowered into the open hole or cased hole section. At the end of that electric tool, we have our logging tools. Sometimes it is being called Sunday. Now, this tool helps us to record various parameters of the formation. Now, these recorded parameters or these recorded curves are being done per depth or per logging interval. We have different intervals carrying out our logging. Our logging is a continuous one. But it is done in an interval, either an interval meters or so. So these are, it's actually sending down drilling. Our measurement while drilling is a tool whereby we drill and actually log our formation. So it's not too different from our wireline logging. Our wireline logging is mainly after drilling to a particular section, we pull up our drilling tools, our drilling string, and lower down our wireline tools through our wireline. So all these are the two types of open hole drilling. We have our wireline drilling, we have our logging wire drilling. As you can see here, your tools have been put out, the drilling tools have been put out, while you have your logging tools lower. Why in this section, you have that as you drill into the formation, you also have tools in the drill string that records the parameter of the formation. Now, we can say that open hole logging provides the most important source of information for well evaluation. Open hole logging consists of loading a set of sensors into the formation to record the formation properties as a function of depth, and this can be performed first after the well has been drilled by lowering a set of sensors on an electric cable. This kind of drilling is called our wireline drilling. Why the drilling, or when the drilling is being drilled, when the hole is being drilled, in our sensor, there are, in our drill string, there are sensors placed in that drill string that helps us in carrying out our logging while drilling, as mentioned earlier. Now, this is just our formation. As we log down hole, this is our open hole log. As we log down hole, there's different information that is gotten. We have our lithology information, we have our porosity information, we have our resistivity information. These are most of the parameters that have been acquired when carrying out your formation evaluation or your well logging. Now, for your open hole logs, the formation parameters or properties we get as a result of the formation properties found in reservoir formation. Now, you should know, as I stated earlier before, that we have different types of formation evaluation. We have our direct method of formation evaluation, and we have our indirect method. And one of the direct method of formation evaluation I told you about is our Core. Core gives a direct or a physical representation of our formation, while our well logging gives an indirect evaluation of our formation. Indirect in the sense that we send down our logging tools. We send down our logging tools. Now, these logging tools helps us to get our resistivity. It helps us to get the nuclear properties of our formation. It helps us to get our acoustic properties of our formation. It helps us to get our nuclear magnetic resonance of our formation. And it helps us to go about our sampling logging. Now we have our logging environment. Now the volume of investigation and environment, stress, temperature, and so. But I'll just rush through this because I just have about 13 minutes left. Now I'd like to go to our basic log types so that we can talk about our well interpretation using getting some feedback from our software. Now we have basic log type. We have our XP. Our XP is known as spontaneous potential log. We have our gamma ray log. We have our PEF log. We have our resistivity induction log. We have our acoustic log. We have our density log. We have our neutron log. And we have our caliper log. Now I'm going to start with kind of formation actually affect our borehole sites. So it's actually important to carry out our caliper logging. Now, one of the important information our caliper log gives is our borehole integrity. How straight is our borehole? Most times, if we just assume that our borehole is having that integrity I mean is as straight as we think it is, when carrying out our cementing our casing, you find out that the amount of cement being pumped into the formation might not be proportionate to the size of that annular volume. Now, because our caliper logging was not being carried out. Now, our caliper logging helps us to actually ascertain our annular volume, because with this we can tell that the width of this or the diameter of this to the height of this will actually give, and the breadth of this will actually give the annular volume of this space here where we have our casing being placed. Now, we have different uses of our caliper log. It's used to indicate our hole diameter and volume, as I stated earlier. It's used to improve for environmental correction, for other measurement, qualitative indication of permeability, and our log quality control. Now we have log properties from well logs. We have our lithology. Now our lithology can be gotten from our natural gamma ray. This is one of our well log. It can also be gotten from our spontaneous potential log, and it can be gotten from our density photoelectric log factor, that is our PEF log. Now, please note, in formation evaluation, it can be asked which log helps us in our lithology identification. Note, these three logs actually plays a role in our lithology identification. They are our natural gamma ray log, that is our GRO log, our SP log, and our PEF log. This log plays a better role in evaluation. Now, the gamma ray log, how do the gamma ray log helps us in carrying out this evaluation? Now, it helps us to detect the clay or shale content in our reservoir due to their reactive activities. Now, as we all know that our shale formation have a high volume radioactive substance in it, while our sandstone formation have a low radioactive substance in it. So once we send down our gamma ray to, it actually detects this high and low radioactive substance in our formation, and it helps us to differentiate between which is sandstone and which is shale. Now, shale gives a high gamma ray log reading and low reading in clean sandstone or carbonate, except in the case of radioactive sand due to zircon or glyconite. We can have such scenario where we have a radioactive sand due to the presence of these minerals in those sand, thereby giving us a high reading gamma ray reading. Now, it also helps us to identify average gamma ray reading in a thick shale section. It helps us to be able to identify what we call our shale line. We have our shale line, we have our sand line, and we also have our cut-off line. Now, I'm going to show us all this when we come to the when we come to the software section. Now, this is one of the ways we go about our shale volume estimation using our lithology log, being a gamma ray log. Now, this is just it. This is one all this helps in reducing uncertainties. All these are uncertainty studies as regards our formation evaluation that might not be discussed in detail here. Now, these are SP log, spontaneous potential log. Now, the curve usually define a more or less straight line on the log. Now, SP is plotted on a linear scale of 0 to 200. Now, the different way we get a little where we have our V shape to be our 1 minus PSP over 1 over our SSP times our 100. Our PSP is our pseudostatic spontaneous potential, which is our SP from water-bearing shady sand zone, which is our maximum XP value in our clean sand zone. We can all get that from these two cutoff line here, either a sandstone line or a shady line. So all those we can get. Now, the next thing we'll be looking at is our PEF log, which is our photoelectric factor log. Now, it is a lithology density tool. The parameter links the number of gamma ray that is absorbed by our photoelectric absorption to lithology. Now, if we send in this logging tool into our formation, the amount of gamma ray that is absorbed into this tool can either be calibrated as 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. When we have any of this calibration, we know that we are in a sandstone formation zone. When we have a number or a value or a PEF matrix indicator as 9 and 10, we know that we're in our shale zone. And in between our shale zone and our sandstone zone is our sandstone and shale zone, or we can call it our mixed zone. Now, coming over to porosity. Now, porosity is the measurement of the void space in a rock where fluid reside under reservoir pressure and temperature. Now, the geologist can define porosity to be primary porosity and secondary porosity, while the reservoir engineer or an engineer can define porosity to be your total porosity or your effective porosity. Total porosity is what is being estimated here as our pore volume all over our bulk volume. Now, take note from the diagram you are seeing here. All these are our spaces, our pore spaces. Sorry, all these are pore spaces. What you are seeing here are pore spaces. While what you are seeing here is our smelting, the blue is our smelting material. Now, this sky blue here is or light blue here is your effective porosity. While the sum of this and these other parameters here is your total porosity. Now, we have different porosity logs. We have our sonic log. Our sonic log actually gives us our porosity. Our density log actually gives us our porosity. And our neutron log actually gives us our porosity. Now, porosity calculated from these tools might not be equal to one another. You should take note of that. It gives us an approximate value of what we are interested in. Now, our sonic log. How can we estimate porosity from our sonic log? Now, this is the formula for estimating porosity from your sonic log. That is, sonic porosity is equal to your sonic time minus your sonic matrix all over your sonic fluid minus your sonic matrix. Now, you can get the sonic matrix for sandstone. These are sonic matrix, and this is the fluid commonly used. For limestone, you can get it from here. From dolomites, you can get it from here. From handrites, you can get it from here. For salt, you can get it from here. And from your casing, you can get it from here. So this For the matrix, you can get that. While for the fluid, we have an interval transient fluid in the wellbore that is either your fresh mud to be 1885 microseconds per feet. Now, coming over to this is actually how we go about our sonic estimation. Now you can get to CP from this correlation here. Now for our density log, now the formation density log is the porosity log that measures electron density of the formation. It can assist the geology to identify the evaporite minerals, detect gas bearing zone, determine hydrocarbon density, evaluate shaly sand reservoir, and complex lithologies. Now just go straight to how we can estimate our porosity from our density log. We can actually do that using this is supposed to be our bulk minus our matrix over our matrix minus our fluid. That's how it's supposed to be. Now neutron logs, we can actually tell this how we can estimate our porosity from our neutron log. Now the next thing is our permeability. We know that our permeability is the ability of rock to transmit fluids through it. Now permeability sometimes can be said to be related to your porosity. Now this is the correlation for permeability, and these are factors that controls our permeability. We have our bedding, we have our grain size as a major contributor, we have our grain shape, our grain orientation, our packing arrangement, our grain size distribution and sorting, our cementation, and our clay content. Now these are some of the correlations we use to estimate permeability here in the Niger Delta, and why this is some of the correlation we use to estimate water saturation here in the Niger Delta. Now coming over to water saturation, this is the water, we can actually know what water saturation is all about. Now we actually use Archie model to estimate our water saturation, which gives us the fraction of water contained in our bulk volume. Now this is just it. Now we have our hydrocarbon saturation. I just want to go through this. A detailed class will be fixed soon for us. I want to just go through the quick look evaluation because my time is up. I just want to go through. Okay. Let me just go through this review of logs, and so I think I can do that. I can do that using my software. Now to go through a quick look evaluation using my software, and that will be the end of the class. Now this is just my Petrus software. Now this is it. I have my lithology log being my gamma ray log. I have my resistivity log there, that's my deep resistivity log, and I have my neutron density log combined. Now with this log, can I be able to tell which zone is hydrocarbon bearing, which layer or which sand formation is water bearing, and how can I discriminate between my hydrocarbon fluid for me to know which is gaseous bearing and which is oil bearing, that's our liquid hydrocarbon. Now from this, we know that resistivity actually is the opposite of conductivity, and conductivity is the ability of a material to pass fluids through it, while the opposite is resistivity, that's the resistance to flow of electric currents through a material is known as the resistivity. Now, what then can we use a resistivity log to do? With a resistivity log, we can tell which formation is hydrocarbon bearing, because when we have a spike in resistivity tells us that, okay, the fluid contained in this formation is actually resistive to the flow of electric current. But we know in reality that water is more conductive. That is to say, water is less resistive. So if water is more conductive and less resistivity and less resistive, we can say that our hydrocarbon fluid or our crude oil is less conductive but high resistive. So we having a spike here tells us that this sand zone here is actually hydrocarbon bearing, and we having a normal resistivity curve here tells us that all these other zones are water bearing. Now this is how we can differentiate which zone is hydrocarbon bearing and which zone is water bearing. Now the next thing we are going to do is how we can actually discriminate which is gaseous hydrocarbon being a natural gas and which is a liquid hydrocarbon being a crude oil. Now we can tell that through an effect that is called ballooning effect or a bow leg effect. From where my cursor is pointing here, we can get that from a neutron density law combined. I seen this large difference between my density and neutron log. This is actually telling me that I'm having a ballooning effect here, or I'm having a bow leg effect, which tells me that this formation here is gaseous bearing, that is containing a large amount of natural gas here. While we are also having a spike here in resistivity telling me the presence of hydrocarbon, I'm not having a ballooning effect here. Same thing as this point, there's no ballooning effect here as compared to these two other zones. So with this, I can be able to characterize or evaluate my formation based on this information gotten from this well log, saying that this zone here is gaseous hydrocarbon bearing. So each kind of evaluation will be different from, or each kind of completion will be different from me completing my liquid hydrocarbon bearing zone. I think with this, I've been able to highlight most methods we use for our formation evaluation. Our next class might be a practical one where we'll go this step by step to actually understand this concept and go into it in details. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate, and thanks for having me take you through formation evaluation one. Thank you once more. I'm Weze Innocent Chukwudi, a physicist here in Nigeria, residing also here in Nigeria, citizen of Nigeria. So thank you. Over to your organizer. Any question? Or we can call it today. My time is actually up. I need to attend to some other meetings.
Thank you, sir.